welcome. Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Amy, would you take a roll call, please?
Mrs. Talby?
Here.
Mr. Gilbert?
Here.
Mr. Detzel?
Here.
Mr. Heather?
Here.
Mrs. Slattery?
Here. And our mission statement is that the Northwest Local School District will create a responsive learning community where all students are valued, challenged, and guided along a pathway to success. And we need a motion and a second to approve the agenda for this evening.
So moved. Second.
Passes 5-0.
All right, we'll start tonight with a presentation of just introducing our new administrators for the upcoming school year. So when I call your name, if you'll come up to the podium to be introduced, we'll start with Jake Kuhnlein. Jake is going to be our Director of Student Services. He enters his 18th year in education with experience as a teacher, school administrator, educational consultant, and district level administrator. Has taught at the secondary level and brings district level experience overseeing various aspects of the K-12 continuum. He most recently spent the last 2 years at Cincinnati Public Schools as the Senior Director of Leadership Development and School-Based Pipelines, in a position where he led the recruitment and selection for assistant principals and principals, as well as developmental programs for administrators. So we welcome Jake to his new role. Thank you. Next, we have Siobhan Neal, who will be our Director of Special Education. Siobhan has 23 years of experience in the field of special education. Over 9 of those years have been within Northwest. Her extensive background in education and leadership make her an invaluable addition to the leadership team, and she began her career in Mount Healthy, where she then embarked on her administrative career with us as a special education supervisor, where she's been for the past 9 years, focusing primarily on Colerain and Northwest high schools with their transition programs. So she has also worked with Colerain Elementary, Colerain Middle, and our alternative programs. So she's kind of seen the whole spectrum. So we welcome Siobhan. At the building level, we have Alex Shrewsbury, who is our new principal of Northwest High School. Dr. Alex Shrewsbury has spent most of his career teaching and leading in Watts community of Los Angeles, California. He started as a special education teacher, gained experience supporting students with emotional and behavioral needs, and that was the focus of his doctoral research as well. Through that role, he served as a leader on many committees within the school and the district, while also presenting at conferences and workshops across the country. As an assistant principal, he focused on academic growth, expanding opportunities through community partnerships, and sustaining safe and welcoming school environments. And although he spent a lot of his time in California, he has roots here in our area, and so we're glad to welcome him home. So Alex Shrewsbury. Kristen Castile, principal at Colerain Middle School. Kristen is a proud alumna of Colerain High School, graduating in 2000. She began her teaching career in our district at the middle school before going to high school teaching math. And then she moved into her role as a family engagement specialist and social worker for us in 2017, working with our alternative programs, where she continued to support students and families. Most recently, she served as the administrator over alternative program Transitions Academy. So welcome, Kristen. Next, Megan Alford. Megan is going to be the principal of our Houston Early Learning Center. Megan began her career in Harlem, New York as an intervention specialist. and joined Northwest in 2022 when she served as the Dean of Students at Montford Heights. She has a master's degree in educational leadership, and we welcome her to the preschool.
Thank you.
Chris Crisp is going to be the assistant principal at Struble Elementary. He has taught in first grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, and sixth grade, and most recently has been the Dean of Students at Corning Elementary for the last 2 years. And he looks forward to working on making school enjoyable for all the students at Struble. Welcome, Chris. We have Andrew Reniker, who will be our assistant principal at Transitions Academy, replacing Kristen in her new role. Andrew brings a wealth of knowledge with over 23 years of experience. Before joining us at Northwest, he spent the last 5 years at Mountain Healthy as a lead intervention specialist and dean of students. So we welcome Andrew in his new role at Transitions Academy. Not here tonight, but we want to make sure that we can welcome her as well, is Brenda Stevens, who will be the assistant principal at Northwest High School. So we want to make sure that she's recognized as well in her new role with over 15 years of experience as a teacher, also about 16 years in the hospital system, working her way into hospital administration, and most recently as an administrator in Dayton schools. At White Oak, we welcome Joe Newman, who is the new assistant principal there. Mr. Newman's journey began as a 7th grade math teacher, which led him on a voyage into administration as an assistant principal of culture and community at a high school in Cincinnati Public. He later went on to serve as a principal at the Hamilton County Educational Service Center. So we welcome you with your experience, Joe. Thanks. We also have 2 new special ed supervisors, so we'd like to welcome Cindy Harold. Cindy, in her educational leadership, has over 5 years of one-on-one experience in classrooms as an intervention specialist in Knoxville and Cincinnati Public. She also transitioned out of the classroom and into administration about 3 years ago in Knox County in the special education department. So bringing that experience with you, welcome.
Thank you.
And Katie Fleming, another special education supervisor. She joins Northwest with 14 years of experience in special education. Before moving into leadership, she served as an intervention specialist in Mount Healthy High School, focusing on literacy skills. She was a transition coordinator for the junior and senior high school for 5 years. And for the past 3 years, she's been a supervisor consultant for intervention specialist and support services at the Hamilton County Educational Service Center. So we welcome you to the team as well. One of the things that's really nice about this cadre of new leaders is that we have a good balance of people that have come up the ranks from within the district who bring that knowledge of who we are as a district, as well as some outside voices and perspectives who bring some new ideas to the table with us as well. So we have a good balance, and we're excited to have all of you here.
Well, I'd like to welcome all of you. Please, if there's ever a time where we could support or volunteer in your buildings, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you.
Okay. And then next, we have Alex has just been introduced, and now he's coming back up to the podium with Aaron Davis, our 2 high school principals, who are going to share some changes that are coming up with high school cell phones.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Alex and Aaron are really going to take the lead here because they are always leading in front at both Coleraine High School and Northwest High School. But I did want to introduce myself and just tell you how excited and honored I am to be here as the Director of Student Services. Over the last several weeks, Erin, Alex, members of her team, and myself with Daryl have been researching and collaborating to find bolder, more innovative solutions to supporting our staff and students to increase our engagement in classroom and school environments inside of our schools. We know that our students and our staff deserve more support, and we know that nationally, not just locally, cell phones are something that we are all grappling with and all trying to find ways to remove that distraction from ourselves even as adults. And so as we sought a bolder, more effective solution, tonight Erin and Alex will share more about their presentation around why we believe Yonder pouches or Yonder bags are a great solution for our schools as a pilot initiative here at Northwest Local. I do just want to say that what we'll be presenting to you tonight is where we're at in this journey of planning and collaborating, and we wanted to hear questions and feedback from you first. But later in the board meeting, we will be asking for your approval through the superintendent items 11.3 and 11.4 for the approval of some small modifications and revisions to our code of conduct and school handbooks to make sure that our policy aligns with and creates the opportunity for this initiative to flourish at both the high schools. So Erin and Alex have really been fearless in stepping into this new idea, and so they will be doing most of the presenting, but I'm happy to hop back in and answer any questions of how this plays out with regards to our code of conduct tonight. So thank you so much. I'll turn it over to them.
Perfect. All right, so we started with some introductions of Jake Kuhnlein. You just met me a few minutes ago. I'm Alex Shrewsbury, the principal at Northwest High School, and presenting with me as well will be
Mrs. Erin Davis, proud Coleraine High School principal.
She keeps saying that. I'm going to keep saying prouder Northwest High School principal. All right. So our agenda in this presentation is just a little introduction of why we're here, a call to action that we have as our duty as educators and leaders, what we need to do to set our students and teachers up for success, what a day with Yonder will look like, and then questions, feedbacks, and next steps. So why are we here? Obviously at the center and focal point of everything is our kids, and finding ways that we're supporting our kids. We are also supporting our teachers, and there are policy changes that often are there in place to support that as well. And so how are we responding to each of those things? And that leads us to where we are tonight. As you may or may not know, there has been Ohio legislation that was recently passed requiring all districts to place an emphasis on limiting cell phone use for a number of reasons. There are necessary exemptions for some students who may require it for a specific health concern as determined. And this is something that schools must adopt by next summer. So being ahead of it and ensuring we have the resources behind it, I think will support us. Some of our teachers, the way this will support them is providing another resource as an aid in engaging students by limiting cell phone use, providing an enabling system for teachers to enforce those policies, and thus, by both of those things, improving teacher retention as well. So there are two studies that I'll share with you, just basic info of regarding social media, cell phone usage. This one sharing the impact that social media has had on adolescents regarding sleep quality, anxiety, depression, and how that emotional investment in social media impacts them. And this is just in general, not just in the classroom. And then also in regards to being able to focus and cognitive capacity. So just the mere presence of smartphones, not just them being used or being in hand, but the presence of them itself causes these interruptions and distractions. And so this shows a recommendation of separation from those devices to get that increase available cognitive capacity. So Erin is going to take us from here, sharing some of the things that we may have done in the past and where we're going in the future.
Thank you. Okay, I know this hasn't been a new topic, so kind of building on conversations that I think maybe a year ago I stood here and we talked about, but to share more about what have we done to try and address cell phones. We have implemented various zones within our school buildings. Red zone is no cell phone use. Yellow is for instructional purposes only. And many years ago, we did have green zones, which were hallways. Those did carry over into last year. A lot of it was teacher autonomy based on what happened in the classroom. For instance, if they needed them for instructional purposes, but some were non-negotiables. Offices, nurse's office, restroom, things like that were red zones. That's what we mean by the zones. Consequences for students violating cell phone use. That also was left on the lower level up to teacher autonomy. When it did become a referral and it came to the administrator's hands, we did put more of an emphasis on creating specific discipline that went along with that. We have tried teaching students the dangers of using cell phones, kind of as Alex just touched. There's definitely some things that increased cell phone usage could really hinder long-term, not only with students' academic or the lack thereof because of cell phones, but just in general. We'll get into those a little bit more. One of them that the next one mentions is cyberbullying. So interventions to address and mediate cyberbullying. This has definitely been an issue that we, and we're not alone in this, every school in America, but we have had to deal with in regards to mediating communication that happens between students online. All right, so in working with Yonder, this is creating a phone-free environment for schools. So you can see kind of the things that they represent that kind of echo things that we have done, but also what they have to offer can really help us solidify making sure that cell phones don't become a hindrance or a distraction in the classroom. So maximize instructional time. Like I said, teachers had the autonomy to maybe use this if they had a lesson and students didn't have access to their Chromebook for whatever reason, they could use their cell phone. There are some apps that are built in, Quizlet and some other ones that are easy for students to use and respond for academic purposes with their cell phone. But Yonder does put a true focus on maximizing, instructional time and taking that away as an option. Focus students on learning. Again, that distraction's not there. Reduce behavioral issues. Like I said, we have seen many instances, unfortunately, in the past where students have used this as a communication between the two of them or including other parties that have then led to conflict that we have had to address. Improve academic outcomes, and then build community and school interaction. That is one thing that we even have talked about with this being such a go-to for some of our students. What is that going to look like in a cafeteria? Are students going to be able to socialize as much as they have in years past when they were able to sit there and play on their cell phone during lunch rather than socialize with their friends? So that is something that we have discussed. Yonder, an enabling system to support teachers and students. So again, this is a system where, and this is not just in schools, I know our first bullet point indicates that, but industry leader in phone-free spaces, including schools, but this is used in concerts and other places as well. It uses a magnet to lock your device. So when you put your device in there, you close the top and then the magnet seals that so that it cannot be opened. And then it removes access to that device. Obviously, there are some ways around it if you have a smartwatch or things like that, but those are also things that we're still addressing and getting more information about to see how we can best include that in part of our plan. This allows students to maintain ownership of their property. So after it's locked up, they actually keep it on their person. So it's not like it's locked up and stored away. It can be in their purse, their backpack, anything in their pocket even. It's very small, just a little bit bigger than the phone itself. So it does allow the student to feel a bit more comfort that it's not that we're taking it from them, but they have the resources to lock it up and then go ahead and put it away where it does not belong out in the classroom. So I kind of went over this. How does it work? This is more of a visual. So you kind of slide the phone in the pouch and then you close it shut. And then when leaving, all the way, as you see to the far right, there are magnets that come with the program. And all you do is tap it, and then kind of like the things in the department store, or when there used to be department stores, it kind of opens and releases. So it's a very quick process. Again, I've personally seen this be used in concerts as people are leaving, hundreds of people are leaving, and it's a very seamless process. What ifs? So this has probably been our biggest point of discussion because as with any new initiative, there's a lot of what ifs, but this is a pretty big new initiative. And like both Alex and Jake said, we are still discussing these because this is not set in stone yet, so we know that there's a lot still to be learned. But what if in an emergency? The school will provide unlocking devices as quickly as possible. We understand that this still does possibly present a sense of nervousness for some because you would not be able to access this. I think I can speak to last year when we had a swatting incident. A lot of people felt comfort being able to hear from their student right away. We recognize that, and we, like I said, are still trying to build in systems so that we know we can provide a sense of security if an event like that should happen to occur. Office admin and counselors can all unlock these upon request, so it's by no means that we're trying to keep students from their parents communicating with them, but it creates one more avenue that it's not being done in the classroom. It's not being done excessively. So we do have multiple places where these could be unlocked throughout the day if needed. We did include here that as of now, students will be responsible for pouches throughout the day. They are a $25.50 replacement. We want students to take ownership of these, so we feel it is necessary to make sure that we share that piece. As with anything that students would purchase, we want to make sure it's cared for and that they take responsibility for it. If a student is non-compliant with Yonder, we'll follow the student code of conduct, and that too is something that we're working through. We've done a lot of we've had a lot of conversations with local schools as well as the company. They've given us other schools in the state that have used it. We have talked to athletic directors, principals, secretaries, everyone to try and get parents to try and get their perspective to help us answer questions. Like I said, I definitely think this is going to take a learning curve, or going to be a learning curve, but I do think that the more information, or the information we've gotten along with others' feedbacks, like Jake said, we want to hear the things. You guys are thinking of things that we might not have, so that's still a learning process for us as of now. Next steps. So if you were to continue with this process and grant this, our first line of in the process would be communication. Obviously, I think that we are very close to the start of the year, but we do think it is feasible to firmly educate our staff, family, and students to make sure that we can hear them, answer questions, and get back with them. We've even said that we'd like to have various opportunities for them to send in questions or ask questions. We're still considering what that might look like, but then an opportunity to answer them and get back to them before school even starts. Even after school starts, I think we all recognize there might be some things that have not come up and we would need to be flexible and make changes. But we do feel like we want to make sure that we provide enough information as possible in the beginning so that we can lay out expectations and there aren't questions for families so that they know the expectation when they walk in the door of Colerain or Northwest High School at the beginning of the year. And we do have these planned to be delivered. If so passed, these will be delivered and we will start using these on the first day of school. I think that's all we had. Did I miss anything? I forget.
Aaron, you
What-
don't happen
yeah.
to have one, do you, to show us?
I don't. They have assured us that they will send them back or send them right away so we could get them. I don't have a solid date on that. We do have another meeting scheduled with the companies so that we can learn some more information about that. Once we do that, then they will confirm shipment. But we don't have any to actually show you. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So what about the staff? I'm sitting in a classroom and my kid's got his phone
Yep.
locked up and the teacher's up there on their phone. What's the,
We just
because I think that's gonna be a question you're gonna have from kids.
absolutely.
You
We
know,
just recently.
How come I have to lock my phone up and the teacher can be
Yeah.
on their phone?
We recently talked about that. We believe that this is something that we will strictly build into our staff days. And the expectation would be that they are a role model in the classroom. If our whole goal is to get kids learning, kids are not learning if you are in the front of your room on your cell phone. So I think what we would have the absolute same expectation, not necessarily in a bag, but to be a role model and do what we would expect of students as much as possible.
Daryl, I know this is your initiative. On June 17th, you said that you had not yet spoken to the high schools about the pouches, but that if and when it came to fruition, this would be covered by federal grants. What grant did we receive for this?
So it's a current federal grant that we have. that we were able to use some of the funds for that, for this. The
What's
entire.
the name of that grant?
It was Title IV. And so with that, when I was contacting Yonder, Erin was actually doing it as well. So when I contacted her and said, hey, have you thought about this? She's like, I already have a meeting scheduled with the company. The one thing that when Alex started talking to Erin and they said, hey, we want to do this together, I was able to find that through looking at previous budgets and what was allocated but not completely used, we were able to do both high schools, mostly through the federal grant, but then we had some district funds that were allocated but not completely used, and we were able to bring Northwest in as well so they could do it together.
So is that grant provided annually?
It's an annual grant.
And then on the vendor contracts, it shows that we're paying $78,000. That is shown as an additional cost to the current budget, so that's outside of the grant.
No, that's reallocation of the funds. So like the money that was allocated for the general fund is being reallocated to this. So it's something that when they said we are interested in this and want to do it, we believed that it was important to support them in making sure that we could do that through the funds we had available.
And even with buildings literally falling down, we think this is the best use of funds,
Yeah, because those funds couldn't be used for building projects.
or even just replacement of things that are falling apart. It has to be used for what?
Yeah, these funds could not be used for anything around buildings, bricks, mortar, new furniture.
So it's what, people and electronics, technology? What are the uses that it could have been?
The title funds.
The 78,000.
So the 50 of that, 50 some of that was through the federal funds. The other amount was through the reallocation of the funds that were allocated the last couple of years to human resources that we moved and shifted to this.
Okay, so what cuts did we make for this then?
We didn't make any cuts.
So the money was being used for what though before this?
The money that we reallocated was through human resources, was around recruitment, retention, and supporting of some of our diversity efforts.
And then I know some of these, you said you're still working through the process, so how many spare bags will we have for replacement when they get broken or lost? Or will we have enough to cover that, or what happens if we run out of those very quickly, and how quickly can they be replaced?
That I'm not sure of. We can look into that, I'm sure.
Sorry. Great question. Daryl and I were just talking about that tonight. When the shipment does arrive, there will be extras to have an initial replacement. And then as we start handing out those replacements, we will then be charging students a fine or a fee to give them a second one. And that will build up a fund to then be able to do this in a sustainable way in the future.
Okay. And then how quickly would you be able to unlock all bags during a true emergency? That's still just, I know you're working through all this, I just thought
So
of these questions
is it
today,
one
so-
magnet with each 60 bags? So we are working to find ways, and both buildings might look different, but to strategically put, we've talked about possibly giving them to corner teachers or something like that. So in the event of emergency, we're definitely still working through what that plan might look like, but it has been discussed.
Okay.
I would add that that would probably be on the radar for both of us as we're doing drills at the beginning of the year, to be able to look at that, to share out, as that would be the first true test.
What about a drill? I mean, we know those happen and kids panic. I will get 50 messages from kids and parents as soon as something happens. How will you justify whether it's, I really truly panicked and broke mine open to call my mom, but it wasn't a true emergency? I'm gonna fight that as a parent to not pay that $25 because my child thought in that moment that they really had to get a hold of me. How will you handle those situations?
I think there's going to be a learning curve. I do think it's about educating our staff and our students. Alex, as he just said, when we have drills in the beginning of the year, not only on teacher and service days, so work through with our staff, but then once we bring students in, through those drills, really be sure we're communicating, this is an instructional lockdown, or this is a drill. We try and be very clear with them as is, but we definitely know if you're on the track, you might not hear clearly an announcement, and then you might have miscommunication. So I would say that through this process, we're definitely willing to handle situation by situation. But I think a lot of it starts with just educating the staff and students to, what if this is called? What, to be honest, in our swatting last year, that could have been the entire school cutting theirs open.
For sure.
So I think it's just we're gonna have to play out different scenarios, to really run through what that might look like in each one.
I think one of the things that we've talked about is in an event like that, the most important thing for our students is for them to pay attention to the adult they're with who's going to guide them to safety. And they still have their phone because that's how they're getting information about what's going on, what do they need to do, and how do they get to safety. And so
To that point, we had students last year in the swatting incident who were inappropriately using their phone. We had one playing music, and that's not fair to the others that are listening and taking direction. So again, I think it really plays into that educating our students and staff, regardless of yonder bags, you shouldn't be on your phone at that time. So just kind of working through those situations.
What's the plans for allowing students and parents to get messages to each other quickly during the school day?
Sorry, I don't want to keep blocking up. Anyone can go.
I might, do you mind?
Anyone. I
I'm
just
writing
came
all
up
of
with-
these
I'm a
questions
parent of
down.
a
Yeah.
freshman, so I
We're
just-
so grateful for
Yeah, I
all
came
of
up
the
with
questions, even if we don't have answers to
Yeah,
them
that's
today.
okay.
This is sort of serving as our kickoff for this. And in fact, we have some letters drafted that, depending on how the votes go on the code of conduct tonight, we'll send to staff and families and students immediately tomorrow to ensure that we start having an engagement with this. With regards to the broken or damaged yonder pouches, I think what you'll see tonight is that the revisions we're suggesting for approval to the code of conduct are ones that still give administrators and staff wide latitude to discern whether or not something was done intentionally or accidentally. And so, like right now, for example, there's a code in the code of conduct that says, damaging school property. That code won't change, right? It'll be up to the staff and the administration to determine if that was an accident. Just like a Chromebook in the school. If I accidentally broke a Chromebook, the staff is going to be responsible for determining, did you accidentally drop it? And if so, we're going to handle that one way versus did you slam it against a wall on purpose and we saw you do that and we have evidence for it. With regards to your question around how we communicate with students and how parents get in touch with students, when we've talked with school-based administrators and staff that have implemented this before, one thing that they reassured us or told us that they learned was that they had to go above and beyond to show families and earn their trust that they can still get in touch with their student. Because we are all hardwired differently than we were when we were kids. There were no cell phones, and we would call the front office, we'd wait 15 minutes, then the student would be brought down to the principal's office, they'd get on the phone. We're sort of hardwired now to be able to text our student immediately, my child immediately get a response. And so we're going to have to work extra hard to reassure parents that when they call the front office to get in touch with their child, the answer is yes, and the answer is quick. And that's just something that we're all going to have to work to support our schools in implementing, because that is going to feel different than when you could text your student and say, hey, what time does practice get out? And you get a text message response immediately from your student or your child that same
I think
Mm-hmm.
day.
it'll be, coming from Corey Middle School, they did not have a cell phone at all during the day, so they were used to that.
Yeah.
But then you've got kids arranging rides and rides changing and things. So I think that will be a challenge. I think it's gonna be harder for the older kids who have had it the whole time and now all of a sudden don't, so that may be a bigger challenge there, but, okay. And then teacher support so far, how has that been as you've communicated this to some of your teachers?
Yeah, really, a lot of what has been shared from teachers is that this provides a resource and a tool to do what we're already trying to strive to do, and that everyone is bought in and behind limiting cell phone use within the classroom. And so I think teachers obviously have some of those concerns that we've started talking about and are still working on, of the what ifs and these situations. But for the most part, it has been encouraging to hear the positive feedback just of this is a resource that will allow us to do what we're trying to do.
Okay. And then how do you plan on measuring success going forward? How will we know if this is a success at the end of the school year?
Sorry. I feel like we'll probably lean on the usage of the specific code of conduct, those numbers in there. as well as other factors. I think that are we going to say that that's the end all be all if our scores increase? Probably not. Hopefully, it's great instruction, increased engagement in the classroom, things like that. So I think that those are definitely some factors that we're still working out. But obviously, we do have the code of conduct that we can lean on for specific codes in public school works.
Will AirPods be banned as well? Since there's no need for
So through our
them?
discussion, yes, the pouch itself does not block a signal. So if you have a smartwatch or you have AirPods, that could still travel through the pouch. Through our discussion as of now, that I think probably is where we might land, or where we, I don't know. It's up for discussion. And obviously, like they both said, it's changing based on feedback. But if it is being used in regards to your cell phone, so texting through your watch or music through your AirPods, then that will fall under the code of conduct. So as of now, I don't think we would ever condone either one of those. We have talked about if, for instance, someone needed to listen to a video on their Chromebook, we have earbuds, that the students can use versus trying to get out their AirPods, which might then lead to listening to music from their cell phone or another source.
And smartwatch, I mean, I can do everything on here, so how, is it just the teachers monitoring and seeing if I type on here, or would you take it away then and hold it till the end of the day like you would a cell phone, or?
Yeah, so a lot of that is moving forward with, if they're using a personal electronic device, that we follow the code of conduct just like we would.
So you
if-
would list this in the code of conduct? as
Well,
a-
with it being personal electronic devices already in there, that smartwatches would be considered part of that.
Okay.
Aaron, and Daryl, and Alex, I want to congratulate you guys for taking this first step. I honestly would like to just see them put in the locker, and then the student can get them when they need them at the end of the school day. Nobody in here has worked with patients that have internet and cell phone addiction like I have. And I've got one patient, it's about made her suicidal, where she gets up at 3 in the morning to get on to check her messages. TikTok is the big thing she likes. These are bad things, and listening to this discussion, I'm amazed how my generation survived. I don't think my mom and dad called me one time from kindergarten to high school, nor my brother, or I don't even remember any kids. Oh, you got a telephone call, you need to go down to the office. I mean, this is just this crazy new culture we live in, where you have these shadow parents, that everything has to be monitored, and it's just incredible how the culture has changed, in my opinion. But I really am glad you guys, and I'd like to see one, but we'll trust that they're small and easy to operate.
The kids, they'll keep these with their backpacks overnight and then just continue to carry it like the Chromebooks?
Yes.
Okay, great. And then we did already talk about the new policy that was earlier this summer, so why the change? What made you go to yonder bags?
So after we passed the initial policy, the conversation with Aaron about this is an idea that other schools have talked about. I've talked to other superintendents who use this, who have had very positive results. And then when Erin said that she was already looking into it and wanted to do it, I wanted to make sure that we could support her. And when Alex came on and said, I want to be a part of this as well, I wanted to make sure that they could both, since they share students, there's going to be a lot of logistics that we're going to have to be taken into account if it was just one school versus the other. And so when they started asking for this, saying we believe this is going to be something that really changes what we're doing and really helps move us forward, I wanted to make sure I could support them.
One more question. How will kids stay engaged in study hall? That's the biggest usage time of cell phones.
So I was gonna say, we do study hall a little differently.
Okay.
But I think that, we very much try and limit a study hall in a student's schedule in general. We wanna put them in classes where they're gonna be exposed to different opportunities. If they are in study hall, we, have definitely talked about what that could look like in regards to using their time wisely. So there's different things that we have, and it's kinda like the cafeteria discussion that we talked about. You can look across the cafeteria and there might be kids just sitting by themselves on their phone. It's gonna look different in a few different aspects throughout the day. So that is one that we're currently having discussion on, but in general, we try not to put, some kids will request it because they have sports day afterwards and things like that, so they make good use of the time. For those that are in study hall that really don't need it, we try and avoid that anyway, so.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you three taking this on, and I truly hope it's a success. Thank you for answering all my questions, and
Yeah.
if there's other
Thanks
things
for, yeah,
that.
thanks for asking questions.
I have a few questions.
Yeah,
I think you're asking for trouble having the kids take the pouches home at night. Hannah went to one of the CPS schools, Hughes maybe, who did the pilot, and she said they had to walk through a metal detector because a kid could put a phone in their back pocket and say they don't have one. And then they have their phone all day, and every other kid in the classroom has a pouch. So I don't know how successful they can be without a metal detector.
do you clarify? So I will say that I was very skeptical at first. So when our admin team was still in the office before summer, we heard about the pilot from Hughes and then the purchase from CPS for all of their schools. So we just got on, we signed up for an info session to see how it was, and then that's when Daryl and I had kind of connected. One thing through talking with Jake that I feel like has changed kind of my line of thinking, not necessarily maybe on taking it home, but if the whole goal is to keep cell phones away, regardless if it's in the pouch or not, if that's a deterrent from them getting it out, it's gonna, I think that we're gonna at least see a major decrease in cell phone usage and in conflict. I think that, like I said, with the chance of possibly getting your phone taken, if it is seen out and not in a yonder pouch, and whether you've lost your yonder pouch or it just wasn't there, I think that I want to use that opportunity to build ownership. And then we're also talking about what does that look like if it is taken, to try and really drive home and make sure students understand that it's not that we're trying to keep them from communicating maybe with friends, but no, but with their families, but more so making sure that they're using their time wisely, taking ownership for this, and bringing the pouch to and from school is something that they're going to need to be responsible for, just like their Chromebook every single day.
Sure. Not to backseat drive this thing, but
Yeah.
why wouldn't we just have them turn their phones off and put them in a pouch then? That would eliminate the use of AirPods, that would disconnect it from the watch. Like, why wouldn't we, like, I believe what they did is they turned them off as they went into the school and put them in the pouch.
Okay.
And so that would cut the communication off. You'd be definitely hitting a few birds with one stone.
When we spoke to the company, because that was my line of thinking before we spoke with them, but once we talked with them, they said the biggest success that they've seen in schools when they take it to and from to create that ownership. So kind of through conversations with the other schools in the state, they had done the same plan that I believe might even be in some of the info that the company sent us. Because I definitely had the same question of thinking, oh man, we're going to pay this and this is never coming back. But the more I learn and the more I hear, I have heard that it's been very successful, so. I don't know if anybody wants to
This
add to
gives
that.
me flashbacks of coming back to school from COVID, where people's behaviors are completely altered. There will definitely be kids going through phone withdrawal, and that is gonna lead to, and I'm not saying, let me preface all this with, I'm in favor of the pouches. I think there's a lot of operational considerations, and you guys are aware of that. I'm not saying you aren't. But I see a behavior issue with this until this kind of, the dust settles on it a little bit. I think it's gonna be a rodeo, probably the first half of the year until.
I think it's going to be hard. I became an administrator back in the day when cell phones were banned and we didn't have pouches. And you could see at that time just the discipline that could arise from that. So I think that that's why it's going to be vital to start communicating with staff, parents, students as soon as possible, and then to give us as much time as possible to hear these kinds of questions so that we can work through what does that look like. Making sure that we can align both of our buildings since we share students is going to be key. And just making sure that we answer these questions as clearly as possible to provide, what our expectation is going to be. But I agree, it's going to be hard, but I think that our hope is that we'll see some real benefits in the end.
Yeah, I think one of the keys to this successful initiative is having the teacher engagement. I mean, the issues you had with the
Yep.
restrooms last
Yeah.
year. Just having people supervise. I think the RSOs have got to be involved with it as well, so that if anybody sees anything as they are going through, like, I remember we were there for something, and Brenda, you were at the school, and every kid that walked by that had a hood up, you were on them. And it has to be that repetitious, that consistent. Otherwise, yeah, I could see kids hiding the phone. I don't have a phone. Every kid in the building has a phone.
Yeah.
There's no way a kid doesn't have a phone.
Yes, some have two. We've thought about who has two phones. Yep. This has definitely been a point of conversation, and I think, like you said, Mark, we have to get our staff on board so that we're all saying the same thing all the time and we're supporting each other. So we're working out what does that process look like when students come in. How are we going to check to make sure the phone is in the bag? And then from that point on, we are on the same page. We have to be. And I'm not going to lie, it's hard in places the size of Colerain High School. But then that's on us to make sure that we follow through with our staff to make sure they know the expectation, and if they're not following it, to address it.
I think one of the other pieces too, to your point of the extra phones, is we've already begun discussing of how do we extend our systems and our operations beyond just the bags. And so once we know the students that typically have an extra phone or typically have difficulties getting it in the bag on their own, that's an additional step that we will take in the morning and have those systems of that, the consequences of potentially you're turning your phone into the office as you get to school rather than having that ownership and accountability of doing the bag on your own. So those are those pieces that we've been discussing and making sure we're aligned on too.
One of the things that excites me is when a fight breaks out and there's 10 kids videotaping the fight, the fact that can't happen.
It'll
Is-
happen. They'll pay the $25 to be able to videotape a fight.
Yeah. I was
hope is
watching
that it
it.
minimizes it, right?
Yes,
It's gonna
minimizes, yeah.
Yeah, so that leads to, so let's say they do damage a bag and they just refuse, I mean, we have kids that don't pay their fees. I mean, what's gonna happen if they say, no, I'm not paying it? I mean, I know these are minutia
Yeah.
things that you
No, they're
guys
not.
gotta have to.
I think that they lead to other things. We've definitely talked about that, and I think that is something that we're still working through. With such a big initiative being so close to the start of school, I think we've tried to lay some key points out, but we're really gonna rely on a lot of feedback to make sure that we have those expectations set, and what does that look like? Are we gonna say this is a non-negotiable? And it's gonna be hard, and I'm sure it'll happen, but if our number one goal is supporting kids and making sure they're engaged in the classroom, you shouldn't have your phone out regardless, whether it's in a yonder bag or not, so.
And then the last thing is, I was watching some TikTok thing the other day and some
You
kid.
got TikTok, Mark?
I don't post. They took a speaker magnet to a car wash, and they ended up getting credits on the car wash. Like somebody figured that out, and that's my whole point. Like, these kids are MacGyvers.
Yep.
Like, they need a paper clip, a rubber band, and a Q-tip, and they can dismantle the school somehow, right? So are there workarounds for this so that they can break in other than just destroying the bag? I mean, can they get their own magnet off Amazon and unlock it? Like,
So that's one of the things that I shared early on was I looked online to find all the ways we could break into it. So that, we are aware of what those likely ways that are supposedly if you slam it hard enough on a desk, it will pop it open. There are magnets on Amazon that can pop it open. And those are really the the only two ways that you can open it without irreparable damage. And so I think it's something that, as the piece for us early on was to continue to share that, and so that staff and teachers, not that it's something they're monitoring, but if the bag is out and a kid's messing with it, that already should send some alerts, because the bag is of no use to you with it just on your desk, right? And so I think as long as we're aware and understand those things and keep an eye on it and then follow those pieces within the code of conduct. But yeah, it's something that with everything, there's a tool to get around it. And there are going to be some situations of emergencies where it may be helpful to be able to get into it quickly, but it's something that we'll keep an eye on and ensure we're following through on as well.
Aaron, one thing that you said I agree with about minimizing, it might not totally eradicate the problem, but let's say instead of, just for example, 300 kids are using their phone actively during the day, it's now 30 kids. That's a heck of an improvement. And I'm sure there's, as Mark said, there's ways these kids will figure it out. All the different hacks out there for everything in the world. But at least it's a place to start, and I don't know really what else we could do at this point, so appreciate your efforts again.
Are the pouches large enough that you can fit a cell phone and a smartwatch in? So could that be required then? And it seems that would make sense.
So that's one of the conversations we're probably the most hung up on right now, and in gathering feedback from a few different schools that have done it, it is two pieces to it. Of one, it does have, you can do almost all the same things you can on a smartwatch as you can on a phone, obviously creating problematic, but it being another piece as we launch this initiative of requiring the smartphones as well, or the smartwatches as well, that if getting it off of someone's wrist when there are a lot more reasons that people would push back on being able to use it, that there is a concern that we have that could derail how successful the initiative is, and people say, look, we might as well not even try because you couldn't do it, all because of the watches, whereas we follow the code of conduct and still have the expectation that smartwatches aren't used, but not necessarily in the bag.
And will you send out data to the families about how the success of other districts who have used the Yonder bags so that they're more likely to buy into it?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So the drafts of communication that we hope to send out tomorrow to begin that engagement and communication actually include some of that data, so that the first thing parents, families, and staff are reading are starting to also, go through a process of educating them too about the positive impact too. You were talking about, the phones and fights and how adolescents are just quick to think impulsively. I was talking with a school and I was asking them about data and what data they saw and what data we should be collecting. And the school cited, we've seen in the first year of using it, we've seen a reduction in failure rates for our students. We've seen a reduction in physical confrontations. The school went over a month without a fight in the beginning of the school year. Now, kids were kids, and there were still physical confrontations in the school eventually.
They probably had to talk to each other.
What's that?
They probably had to talk.
Yeah,
to
it was
them.
probably really weird, right?
I'm gonna beat you out in the courtyard, Jay.
Just give every kid a
Versus
fossil watch
texting
that
them.
doesn't work like mine. They saw a reduction in office referrals. They even saw an uptick in their own school-wide system for students being able to report issues to school staff because they had time to use their prefrontal cortexes that are not quite developed as much as ours to actually say, I should actually report this. And I said, great, that's all amazing, but schools are very complicated places. Like there's actually no proof that the Yonder bag was what moved that data. There are many, many other things. And so the school said, well, let me leave you one more story. We had a tragedy happen in the middle of our school day that we learned about in real time. And pre-Yonder bag, kids would have known about it before we knew about it. And for the first time, we were able to be the adults in a long time and sit down and come up with an intentional plan for how we're going to communicate bad news to kids and have social workers and therapists ready so that when we were able to communicate with them, we were able to do so in a way that allowed the adults to be the adults and guide kids in a bad situation. And so that alone, I think, is worth, trying this out. We are happy to develop a cadence to report out to the public on the successes and the challenges with it. We want to be as transparent with it as possible, but we see what's happening right now with our kids and how much they're struggling, and it feels worth it to try to be bolder in finding a solution. We
Well,
appreciate all the
Thank you
questions.
three again for taking this initiative on, and any way we can help make it a success.
It's good to see everybody work together. And Jake, thanks for the supervision and guidance with our administrators.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nancy, student achievement?
Yes. Yeah, we'll start with academics. The Northwest Local School District would like to recognize 20 students who earned a writing score of 9 or 10 on the Ohio's end-of-course exam for language arts. 10 is the highest achievable score on that test, and it's reached only by a small percentage of Ohio's students. And as you can see, we have a nice cross across the district of students who have achieved it. Elementary school, 1 from Coleraine and 1 from Struble. In the middle school, we had 5 from Coleraine, 1 from Pleasant Run, and 8 from White Oak Middle School. And in the high school, 1 from Coleraine and 3 from Northwest High School. So that's a very good accomplishment, something for them to be very proud of. Next, we have Northwest Local School District would like to recognize 32 students who earned the top score of 5 on their AP exams. Only 12.5% of students earn a score of 5, so they're in a pretty elite class there, so congratulations to them. Next, we have Houston Elementary Early Learning Center. The students and teachers there have been working hard to complete their Patel development or inventory screenings this summer. What the BDI does is measures the mastery of developmental milestones in communication, social, emotional, adaptive, motor, and cognitive development. And it can identify children at risk from age birth to 7 years old. So the students have been really excited to show their knowledge, and the teachers have a great opportunity to learn about their students to prepare for the upcoming school year. Next, we have Struble Elementary, and their teachers, Kate Triantos and Allison Lackner, treated their 5th grade students with a glow day at the end of the school year in appreciation of the hard work the students had done in the 4th quarter, especially during testing. The classrooms were made neon, and the students used highlighters that glow under black light to find text evidence. The students also completed a glow-themed math escape room. They learned about bioluminescent animals in nature, and they also worked in teams to complete a STEM challenge to see who could make the largest paper chain from a single sheet of neon paper. So that was a very exciting, fun learning, and innovative experience for those students. Next, we'll move on to athletics. And in athletics, Coleraine Middle School would like to recognize Eli Brogan as the 2023-2024 Archie Griffin Award winner. This award is given to one male athlete each year who displays integrity, leadership, a positive attitude, academic discipline, humility, and volunteerism. Eli is the embodiment of these traits, as he is a hard worker, great teammate, and a fierce competitor. Eli is coachable and strives to make his teammates better. Eli displays great sportsmanship and represents CMS with class and integrity. So congratulations to Eli with his award. And last but not least, we have Fine Arts. And Pleasant Run Middle School would like to recognize their 6th, 7th, and 8th graders who participated in the Kings Island Festival of Music. Their ensembles were given the opportunity to perform at the park, and they received a participation plaque. The musicians were able to receive valuable feedback from experienced adjudicators who listened, evaluate, and critique their performances. PMRS would like to congratulate all 41 of their musicians who earned the award of distinguished grading in all categories. So some very exciting things in a variety of areas. Lots to be proud of for our students in our district.
Congratulations, thank you. Butler Tech update?
Just one thing, I just wanted to kind of put it out here to the rest of the board about sometime in the upcoming school year to have a board meeting at one of the locations that you guys want to go see or whatever. And so we can get that on the calendar, just maybe we can talk about it the next month or so and kind of see what everybody thinks.
Sounds good. Chris, legislative?
Yeah, the legislature is on their summer recess, but I did have one thing that I kind of researched. It's about the voucher program in Ohio. It's really taking off. Some people love the program, some people do not. In 2023, there were 68,000 families or students that took advantage of it. But now that the program has gotten more generous, there were in 2024, 130,000 students. And to put that.
JP Flooring Design
Oh,
Center,
geez.
we're celebrating our birthday.
God.
We're offering 20% off all.
I do not know how that came on. Jeez. They control us, we don't control them. To put that in perspective, the 130,000, and by the way, that's cost $1 billion to the state. Apparently, they have $3 to $4 billion in their rainy day fund. That would be equivalent to 16 Northwest local school districts. So it's a lot of kids, and it seems like a lot of the students are from more affluent families going to private schools. We're not seeing kids from underserved, underprivileged areas really taking advantage of it like we are kids from more affluent school districts. So that's a concern. But nonetheless, the program is getting bigger and bigger, and we shall see how it progresses, next year. But it's certainly not going to get any smaller. And that's it.
Thank you. Reports from employee organizations?
None tonight.
All right, we have one community comment. Just a reminder that each person is given 3 minutes, and the board is not respond to questions, but we will have your information and you're able to speak. And so we just have one. Diana?
Hello, I'm Diane Herbie. I'm a resident of Forest Park. I was a teacher here in the 70s and early 80s, many years ago. But I'm here tonight as a representative for Waycross Community Media, which provides your public access to Green Hills and Forest Park, Springfield Township, Coleraine Township, Northwest, and Winton Woods. And I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the changeovers and then also about some of the services that Waycross provides. Earlier this year, our former executive director, Chip Berquist, retired, was replaced by government access coordinator Dana Gagnon. And then in March, a longtime board president, Joe Orndorff, who had served for 42 years from the time that Waycross was created, decided to retire, and the board graciously selected me as their new board president. But as you know, Waycross provides public access on 4 channels. One of them is the government channel, which covers these meetings as well as the meetings in the other jurisdictions. And that's on Spectrum, I got to take my glasses off to do this, Spectrum 43 and Phioptics 851 and Coleraine 8. And then the educational access, which you're aware of, which covers all your sporting events and concerts and in both this district and Winton Woods. And that's on Spectrum 4 and Phioptics 854. And then on 2 public access channels at Spectrum 8, Phioptics 850, and Coleraine 979. And also on the second one on Spectrum 15, Phioptics 851. And that covers a lot of our community events like the Green Hills concerts on the Green and Forest Park's Party in the Park and their Jazz in the Park, which is coming up this Saturday. I'll give a plug at 6 o'clock at Central Park. But it also covers programming that's created by students and also by citizens who take workshops and are assisted in creating programs after taking training that's provided by our professional staff and also our volunteers. But what you may not know is that they also provide a lot of other things as well. They do provide training. We just completed our summer camp workshop for students, but they also provide access to a huge archives going back 40 years of programs, as well as providing equipment if you want to rent equipment. You can reach, we're here to provide access and help to you and your citizens. And so you can reach Waycross by calling at 825-2429, area code 513, or by contacting us at info@waycross.org. And then also, you might want to know that we not only provide the access through the television, but also through streaming online at waycross.tv. So if you've got anything that you would like us to help you with, we're here for your service, and thank you for having us here tonight.
Thank you, Diana.
Thank you.
All right, so for tonight, we will start with our consent items with Human Resources.
We seek approval for the following changes. We've had 6 resignations, 1 retirement, unfortunately 1 person who passed away, 4 folks who declined after accepting a position, 4 change in status, 31 initial appointments, and various supplemental items.
And then we also have vendor contracts for our non-public schools, special education, Waycross, good timing, Diana, Yonder, and then Here to Heal Productions, as well as a resolution to accept our bus stops for the 24-25 school year, and a resolution that authorizes superintendent to make determination of impracticability, which would come at the next meeting for students who are impractical to transport. With that, superintendent recommends the board approve the consent items as listed.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or discussion?
Yeah, I have a question for Susan. I made a referral. I ran into somebody who was possibly interested, and I believe she went through the interview process, didn't get the job here in the district, you know what I'm talking about. But she got a call back later offering her a special education job, and she's not licensed to do that. How, can you walk me through how somebody that's not licensed can do a job that, for all I know, they require the license?
Absolutely. So given the teacher shortage in the state and across the country right now, the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce has created what is considered alternate pathways. So there are several different pathways that teachers can take. We have several teachers in that situation, one of which is a supplemental endorsement. So you're licensed as a teacher in a given area, and then you essentially tack on a license through additional coursework. So the state allows you to teach in that area while taking the coursework. You have 2 years in which to complete it, and that's considered a supplemental license. You're adding it to an existing license.
Great.
You know, Susan, that's a lot of things that we, through Butler Tech, when we hire somebody from, that's not a teacher or somebody out in the public, and we want them to teach whatever, we give them that same thing, and they get like 1.5 years, 2 years to get that actual license to come in and teach, so.
Susan, if you had, there was that law that they passed where non-teachers, non-certified people, but people with advanced degrees that, you know, knew the topic that they were going to be teaching. Have you had any applicants from that group?
Not necessarily through that program, but we've had people come through on alternate pathways. And similar to supplemental, it varies, it's different, however, because these individuals are people who may have an undergrad degree in math or an undergrad degree in chemistry, and then they have a 3 to 4 year term to be able to complete educational coursework. They have to pass a certain number of tests, and it's a 7-step process. As they move through those 7 steps, then at the conclusion of that, they are able to achieve licensure. So we have several people in that situation as well who have worked in industry or have degrees not necessarily related to education who have come into the workforce, and we are incredibly thankful for them as well.
Passes 5-0.
So good evening. First, I'd like to ask the board to dispense with reading of and approve the special board meeting minutes from June 12th, our regular board meeting minutes from June 24th and our regular board meeting minutes from July 10th, as well as we have our finance report for the month of June. Our all funds balance was 89 million. Our general fund unreserved balance was 25.8 million. Our revenues year-to-date came in at 102% of projections at 112 million, and our expenditures were at 96% at 130 million, but we also had encumbrances on top of that where we have obligations to pay, but we had not made the payments by year end. So that would be up about another 1.6 million from that. Our investment average rate of return was 4.62%. And for the month of June, we have our routine monthly bills, as well as we had some textbook purchases, the water sewer line project at Corrigan High School, the preschool playground project, which was provided by a grant, and some additional auxiliary and grant fund payments. And then finally, we need to approve the change funds for our athletic and food service accounts so that we can get started for school, getting ready to start. So with that, I ask the board to approve the fiscal consent items as listed.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Will that playground, is it planned to be ready when Houston opens?
Yeah, it'll be at our current Houston site, and it will be ready for school when school opens. And then when we move preschool to a new site, it will move with it.
Passes 5-0.
So we have a couple of other items for approval. First is the textbook adoption for fifth grade science that was on for information at the last meeting. Superintendent recommends the board approve the textbook as listed.
So moved.
Second.
Oh,
Sorry.
no, I was gonna say, I need a second. You got it. Okay. Passes 5-0.
Next, we have some revisions to our middle school courses for Transitions Academy. This is taking into effect next school year, so superintendent recommends the board approve the item as listed.
Need a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
How is the transition of transitions to online going?
So now that Andrew is on and Kristen is, we're having a lot of meetings to kind of talk about what that looks like. We're going to be communicating with families the updated changes to try to make sure that we are keeping everyone with what's going on. With some of the adjustments with the construction schedule here, we'll still be able to have a blended model for next year, so there will still be some in-person, so it'll be more of a transition to the fully online. So this year will be a step-down model.
Okay, one concern would be kids who are not expected to be able to be home by themselves. maybe
Yeah,
use
and
that.
so our middle schools, we've already front-loaded that even when we go online, they would have more in-person than high school. And this year, we'll be able to maintain mostly in-person for the majority of our middle school kids as well, because that is a consideration
And
as we start to
food,
look.
have we thought about the ability for them to come and get food each week, maybe if they're not for the high school kids or?
Yeah, so our food service department, through the pandemic and through summer, runs summer food programs, so they can always connect with the food services program for different meals.
Okay, thanks. Passes 5-0.
Next, we have fee revisions. There is an elementary revision on there, as well as the revision for the Yonder bags, which would be the $25.50 replacement fee for students who have lost or damaged bags. With that, superintendent recommends the board approve the fee revision as listed.
Do those have to be sent off, or like our Chromebooks, we'll have somebody who's able to kind of work on those in the building, or would they have to be more sent away every time?
If they're just being replaced because they're completely damaged, they would just be replaced. If there are some ability to fix them with a minor adjustment, we'll be able to do that internally. Otherwise, we'd have to just pay for a new bag.
Thank you. Sorry, need a motion in a second?
So moved.
Second.
Passes 5-0.
Next, we have the handbook and code of conduct changes. This outlines the language, updated language for our high schools around the changes as outlined tonight by Aaron and Alex. So with that, superintendent recommends the board approve the revisions as listed.
Motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Passes 5-0.
And the last item for this section is a golden pass discount pricing for 24-25. This would allow senior citizens 65 or older in the community to come in, get an ID that's a photo ID that they would be able to get. All they have to do is give us their email address so they can stay connected to our newsletters and connected to the information from the district. And it would allow them to get into all of our high school home events for $5 and our middle school home events that charge for $2. So this is a way to give our seniors a way to be engaged with the discount, but also stay connected to the information coming out from the district. We had a great idea from the board when we talked about this, that we would look at doing something for our retired teachers. So we're working with our athletic directors on a way to do a process for our retired teachers and staff members that would allow them to get in and continue to support our staff at no cost. So that's in the works.
Yeah, I'd like to see them get something at retirement,
Yeah.
a lifetime pass
Yeah.
that they can use to get into all activities, yes.
We just need a process for the ones that are already away from us to be able to come back and get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're working on
Board
that.
members get that.
No, that's why I said it. I'm
Yeah.
like, if
Yeah,
board members
Nicole
get
asked for that.
it,
Yeah.
these staff,
Why shouldn't they?
they should get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're working on that process now, but we've got to go back and get the ones that have already left.
Okay, thank you.
And Daryl, going back probably 20 years, we had a veterans pass for free admission for all honorably discharged veterans. And I guess it just faded away, but I'm not sure how many people used it, but the logic was that they would bring somebody, and then, you'd have, and then concessions. Has that been discussed at all?
It hasn't, but when we go back and talk about the senior pass, the retired employee pass, and we can always bring the veteran pass up too. So this is something that was a new idea that came up, so we can add those two components to it as well as we go back and revise it. But the employee one is an important one.
Thank you.
With that, I recommend the board approve the senior pass as listed.
Need a
So
motion?
moved.
Second. I need a second.
Second.
Passes 5-0.
So we have some additional fiscal items. With the close of the fiscal year '24, we need to accept the final amended certificate as approved by the Hamilton County Budget Commission. So I ask the board to accept the final amended certificate for $250 million as approved by the Hamilton County Budget Commission as listed.
Need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions for Amy? Passes 5-0. Thank you.
And then as we're starting fiscal year '25, we need to accept the official certificate as approved by the Hamilton County Budget Commission for $223 million.
Need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? Passes 5-0.
And next, we have a couple resolutions as part of being part of the OFCC Segment 1 CFAP project. We need to pass a resolution to transfer funds into a classroom facilities fund. So what this does is when you're in a CFAP program, you have to have a fund 010 is what they require us to have on our books so that they can track the project and all expenses is paid out of the project. So this allows us to create the fund and then to move the monies into the fund for this project from our 004 fund, our master facilities fund, where we moved the $20 million to. So we'll need to take the portion that's for the Corin Elementary project and transfer it into the 010 fund. So it'll create the fund and it'll allow us to transfer the funds into the 010 fund. And then as we have the project, all of the transactions will flow through this new 010 fund, which is the classroom facilities project fund. So I ask the board to approve the creation of the 010 fund as listed.
Need a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Passes 5-0.
And then finally, when you enter into a CFAP project, usually when there is a bond, there is also a $500,000 maintenance requirement that is also passed by the community. What we did when we entered into a L project was we gave a $500,000 of our permanent improvement fund. So we have 2 mills that are going into our PI fund. We dedicated a $500,000 at that time to the maintenance fund. But now that we are in the actual CFAP project, we have to create what the Fund 034 maintenance fund. So this allows us to create the fund and then annually transfer the $500,000 evaluation into the 034 fund from the PI fund every year moving forward for the next 28 years to maintain our capital maintenance plan.
Need a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second?
Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
So this is for information only. It is our transportation handbook. Normally it would be on earlier, but we were still negotiating with the transportation department. Their contract was just recently approved at the July 10th board meeting, which then allowed the department to update all of the protocols and procedures in the handbook. So that's why it's on here now, and it will be on for approval at the next meeting.
Thank you.
All right, so with updates, I want to give a special thank you to our first responders. We were able last week to do a critical incident training at one of our buildings. We had Corrigan Township Police, Fire, Hamilton County Communications Center involved. It allowed us to really test systems, run protocols, and get feedback. We had over 50 staff who volunteered to be there so that they could go through what they've been trained to do and give us feedback about, in specific situations, how that's working. It was an amazing day. Our first responders are amazing, and we can't thank them enough for being able to help bring this together and run scenarios where we can make sure that in a crisis, all the people who need to communicate are communicating to make sure that we maintain safety. And as a side note, part of the process was after each critical incident that we ran through, we put someone different in front of cameras to kind of mock a press conference to give people that kind of, with the adrenaline going, how do you get in front and talk through in an appropriate way for the public. Waycross actually donated or brought in some cameras so that it simulated being in front of cameras with lights and microphones, so that we could really create that environment. So a lot of partners came together to make sure that we were able to test systems and make sure that we're as prepared as possible if, God forbid, something were to happen in the future.
How will you communicate that to staff throughout the district of like kind of what you learned from that and what we would do in this case or how things would be?
So we're continuing to debrief with all the feedback because the staff that were there gave us ongoing feedback all day long, so we're still processing that. And then we're going to have debriefing sessions with our first responders to make sure that we're cross-referencing. And then throughout the year, new learnings will be shared through our staff meetings so that our staff know if we have to make changes to protocols, what those are. So that learning will continue to inform our safety protocols and procedures as we move forward. And it was an amazing event, and we've already talked about what we will do to redo it next year so that we can continue to grow in our safety and security measures. Some important dates that are coming up. August 2nd, there is a hiring fair. We still have some open positions. So August 2nd from 11 to 1 here at central office, bus drivers, classroom assistants, food service. If people are interested, walk-ins are welcome. So any open positions are still there for that hiring fair. On August 7th, we have our back-to-school safety, our health and safety fair. In the past, we've always done that at the mall. Obviously, that's not happening. This year, we're hosting the health and safety fair at Northwest High School. So we're going to be using various parts of the building to make sure that we can get all of our families in to still do all of the same things that we've always done. The dentals, the medicals, the haircuts, the backpacks, the school supplies. The entire event will still go on as it always has, just in a new location. So that will be August 7th from 9 to noon at Northwest High School. So note the location change, but same great event. And then just a reminder that as we get closer to August, it is getting closer to the first day of school. So we will welcome students back on the 19th and 20th for our phase-in days. So various grades on the 19th and the 20th. So more communication will be coming out from the buildings about those phase-ins, but we are excited to welcome kids back beginning August 19th to start another great year. That's it.
About a month ago, I brought an idea about using the bricks from Corey Middle School for a fundraising project. Not my idea, but somebody had presented it to me, and I thought it was a good idea. Since then, we've seen people on Facebook posting that they're taking bricks from the dumpsters. Is there any progress on possibly making that into a fundraiser?
Yeah, so we actually pulled a bunch of bricks back and kind of locked them away. The bricks that were there were supposed to be hauled away, but apparently the dumpsters, they loaded them too full and they couldn't take them right away, so they had to bring another dumpster, offload it to get them out of there. We actually worked and tried to give that to the boosters to see if that'd be something they'd be interested in doing as a fundraiser. So we were kind of going through that and then working through some other groups if they wanted to use them as a fundraiser. So we've been holding bricks back for possible fundraisers.
Okay. And Talawanda is now officially announced they're leaving the SWAC. So what is our plans with Northwest Athletics?
So as of right now, Talawanda has said they're leaving. That leaves 3 districts in the SWAC. The SWAC Executive Committee is meeting this fall to continue to talk about what the next steps are in terms of growing the league, merging the league. So those conversations are happening right now, but no decisions have been made.
Okay. Chris, any comments?
Just wanted to say how pleased I am with the work done at Colerain High School up at the Flagpole Plaza. The combination of asphalt and concrete, Daryl, is, it just looks so much better. I mean, I think that was money well spent. I encourage everybody to go over and take a look at it if they haven't seen it. It just really creates a much better first impression for people walking up the steps into Colerain High School. And other than that, not much else to say.
I just want to thank Diane from Waycross. Thank you for giving us all that information. And then I want to thank Aaron, Alex, and Jake. You guys did a good job explaining that. And I know there's going to be some pushback and there'll be some hurdles that you're going to have to jump over, but I think it's going to be it should be something positive. I mean, it may take 6 months, but I think it'll work out. So, good job.
Nancy?
Yeah, very excited about the Yonder program. Somewhere I had read that the average teenager gets like 150 notifications in an hour. So I don't know how they focus on anything. So I think this will really be a big step in the right direction. And it was also a pleasure to get to see the new administrators and put a face with the name.
Welcome, Jake and everybody else that was introduced tonight. A lot of new faces.
Yep, I'm excited to start the school year and want to remind parents to go and elect your transportation, because you do have to go online and say if you need bus transportation or not. And also the update NWLSD email that came out, and you do have to update your student information as well. So I'm excited to see everyone at the back to school fair at Northwest, and just the new website is, I see kinks being worked out every day, so the hopefully is going well and will continue to be a success. So thank you. Need a motion and a second to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Passes 5-0. Thank you.